Welcome back to another Web Dev Podcast episode where we help aspiring developers get jobs and junior developers grow. In this episode, we're going to go ahead and review BrainStation. So if you're considering BrainStation as a coding bootcamp in 2023, I brought on 3 real graduates to share their real experiences. And like usual, I have no interest in selling the program, and I have no interest in just completely trashing the program, right? I want to bring on people that can, think through this stuff and give a balanced review. We're going to discuss the pros and cons, and hopefully you can find something that's relatable to you to figure out like if this program is actually for you. So like usual, we'll go ahead and jump into our intros. David, we'll start with you. I got a few questions. So what industry did you come from? When did you graduate? And how's the job search going?
So my name is David. I graduated, my background is from life science. I majored in biochemistry. I graduated from the January to April 2023 cohort, and I'm currently working as a full stack developer.
Okay, cool.
So, yeah.
Congrats.
Thank you.
How about you, AJ? Same questions.
My name is AJ. I've come from the industry of graphic design previously in bootcamp, and I did the program from April to June. Unfortunately, I haven't found a job yet. I'm still looking and building fun projects on the side.
Okay, cool. How about you, Natalie?
My name's Natalie. I graduated from BrainStation. I was in the February to May cohort, and my previous experience was pre-med, was on the psych track. And I just came back from Europe, so I'm still looking for a job.
Where from in Europe?
Amsterdam, France, and Paris. And Italy.
Vacation? Trip?
Yeah, just for fun. Girls trip.
Okay. Nice. Well, welcome back. Let's go ahead and, I guess, just jump into it. So I kind of like to start with pretend like you don't really know what you know about BrainStation, right? You've had your own experiences, but before you got into it, you decided on BrainStation over all other coding bootcamps for some reason. What was that reason?
I guess I can start. But for me personally, I think I was looking for a career change around, I think, maybe my 3rd year or 4th year of university. And by then I knew like I wanted to make a big commitment to it. So, and I also found that, like for me, I would prefer like an in-person bootcamp, right? And BrainStation was one of the only ones to offer in-person around like January. And I also had a couple of friends who word and knowing that BrainStation was one of the only ones to offer in-person, it kind of made my decision easy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. How about you guys?
I can go next. Similar to David, this was BrainStation was the only one offering in-person classes. I was supposed to go to a Lighthouse Labs. I was interviewing them sometime in December, November, but seeing as they were offering classes online, it made more sense to if I'm paying this much tuition, it's better to go in person rather than just sitting in front of a screen for 10 hours for 6 months. So it made my decision easier to pick something that's in person.
Okay.
My reason was a little different. I actually got a full ride scholarship, so it was free. And since I was going to Europe, I was originally going to go to Codesmith, and I was going to apply for the cohort that started once I came back, but they called me a week before their cohort started and told me that it was completely free. And I was like, well, it'll help prepare me since I had no experience whatsoever in coding.
You said it'll help prepare you. So are you still planning on going to Codesmith?
After I graduated, pretty much everyone said that the only thing that Codesmith would really prepare me more for was like algorithms. So as of right now, I'm doing a lot of self-study, but I think that if I still need it, maybe, but if not, probably not.
Okay. All right. Makes sense. I hear a lot of people just want in person. You're paying a lot of money, and that's a big deal. The experience is definitely higher quality in person there. And we've talked about this, but like, I feel like it's very hard to justify some of the prices for remote programs only. And I think that's where coding boot camps dropped the ball, right? We had that pandemic. A lot of people went remote and the prices stayed the same. And so I know that frustrated a lot of people. So I'm glad you got the in-person experiences. All right, let's jump into things. So what do you think about the curriculum?
I can go first again. So overall, I actually thought the curriculum was like well paced in my opinion. It's pretty like standard front end stuff that we started with. So we started with HTML, then into CSS, followed by JavaScript, into React, into like a bit of backend stuff. But for me personally, I feel like the HTML CS section was like a little too long, and then just going from HTML to CSS to JavaScript, it's like they're like complete. Like JavaScript is actually like a programming language where you have to start using logic, whereas like CSS and HTML is like put this tag, it does this, right? So like I know for my cohort, like a lot of us just struggled with JavaScript completely, just going from just an easy HTML CSS basic website to adding JavaScript to it. And I feel like if there was just more times spent on JavaScript, I feel like it would have made our foundation a lot stronger. So
okay.
Yeah, that.
I can go next. Mine's very similar to David. You know, the CSS with HTML was like 2 weeks on doing JavaScript, and then a week before they were like, "Oh, this is the hardest thing that I have to do in this 3 months of boot camp." So it was a challenge jumping from CSS, HTML to JavaScript, and then React itself was a lot more fun. I generally enjoyed doing React. The JavaScript part, not so much. The functions, advanced functions, higher order function, that was like messing with my brain. I'm still doing some self-study to learn them. And the backend stuff, I feel like it was covered, but not a lot. Like I felt like we could have definitely done a lot more. I'm still having struggle with that where I'm doing some MySQL stuff. And it's like, oh, there's all this stuff that we didn't do and I'm learning it right now. It's like a bit of a challenge to learn. But the curriculum was overall for 3 months. It was very well done. And especially with what they covered, it was all very good.
I think that for the short amount of time that they have, they definitely covered a decent amount, but they definitely focused more on front-end development than back-end development. Again, like David said, they spent a lot of time on HTML and CSS and Sass, which is just like plugging in and just playing around with it, instead of JavaScript, where it's like actually using your brain and really coding, I guess. And I knew some JavaScript beforehand, but the way that they progressed, everybody in Ultimate class was freaking out. And when I saw it, I was like, I would have been able to do this if they progressed me that quickly.
Okay. I laughed. I was like, damn, because you just said like everyone basically had to use their brain once they hit JavaScript. What about all the people that have been struggling with CSS?
In a different way. I think that it's easier to figure out.
Yeah, no, I get it. It's different. It's very different. So you mentioned this idea of, I guess, like you didn't go at the same pace. You said like you've heard other classmates basically say like it was rush, but did you not go at the same pace as everyone else?
We did, but I had taken a JS, like intro to JS from Codesmith before. Mm-hmm. So I had a little bit of knowledge. So I think it was like 3-4 days. I was pretty set on what they were doing. But if it would have been my first time seeing it, I also would have been way over my head.
Mm-hmm. I'm also in like kind of the same boat as Natalie as well. I like self-studied for a couple months before the bootcamp, and I spent a lot of time on like, because I knew JavaScript, React, and the backend stuff would be hard. So I just spent my time. I spent a bit of time just like brushing over those topics before really diving into the bootcamp. So I came in, obviously, like there's a bit of knowledge gap for my like JavaScript and React, but I was able to fill in those relatively quickly compared to my classmates because I spent the extra time to study beforehand. So
it sounds like the JavaScript portion kind of surprised a lot of people, and you would wish they would have spent less time on CSS, more on JavaScript. So do you feel like, when was the point where you feel like you wish they had spent more time on JavaScript? Was it when you were going through a lot of the JavaScript fundamentals? Was it when you hit the back end? Was it when you hit React? Where did you kind of notice like your JavaScript knowledge lacking a bit?
So I think a lot of the examples in class they gave where it's a lot of like, this function does this, and this is the answer when you console log it, right? But then for our assignments and projects, we're building like applications, right, or websites that actually like come to like we see it in front of our eyes in the screen, right? So when all the examples they're giving are just like, this returns this, like just console log this, right? Like filling in that gap by yourself was like a bit of a challenge. So I feel like I kind of wish they gave more concrete examples rather than just like the console log examples they gave in class. I know that was a big like confusing part for me.
Okay. What do you guys think about that?
Pretty much same. I think for me, it was week 6. I was like struggling that part. We covered, I think week 4 was JavaScript, and there was advanced JavaScript. And then just the 2 weeks flew by, and like, I'm still in week 4. I'm still learning from that stuff. It was like, definitely wish they did cover a lot more, especially with the console log testing stuff, which I did not figure out at first. Even though I've been using JavaScript before bootcamp too, I still had issues figuring it out. And to this, I'm still learning how to do I know how to do functions now. Obviously, it's been a month and a half, but I'm still at a point where I'm still trying to figure the logic. And up until my capstone project, I was like figuring out how logic works, and I was asking a bunch of questions in class or my TAs. So I definitely struggle with JavaScript a lot. I'm still working on that.
When you said at that you finally did pick up functions, do you just mean writing a function, or are you talking like you mentioned higher order functions, advanced things that you could do with them?
Functions, I got like around React stuff. High order functions were still a struggle for me, even with React after that, where to a point where I was Googling so much. Like every small thing I was Googling, typing how it works, how to understand it. That stuff, it was a bit struggle to do, and they were kind of like rushing. I mean, given what they have week, but like I felt like they would teach something, and then we had code-alongs. Where at code-along, we were just like super rushed. I was just typing on fast. Half the time, my cohort just closed their laptops down because we couldn't follow along with them.
Huh. Okay. I saw you smile when he said that, Nathalie.
Yeah, we had a couple TAs that would do the code-alongs a little too fast, and no one would be able to follow along. But we actually expressed it to the TAs, and they had one person who was great at talking, one person who loved typing slow, and then it kind of evened out. But there's definitely a gap of our, like, we all have like a collective note area. And there's definitely a gap of when we started JS and kind of middle of React and some of the backend stuff, because they were just going too fast and no one had really the time or ability to keep up.
Okay. 3 months. This is about what I would expect with 3 months. You're teaching full stack JavaScript with 3 months. I usually recommend like 4 months, or if you go through a 3-month coding bootcamp, expect a supplement afterwards, or heavy supplementation beforehand, get a solid foundation down. That seems to be kind of like a common recommendation with BrainStation to just better serve you, right? Like the whole idea of this is like, if someone does decide to go to BrainStation, like, okay, there's gaps in this program. How do we fill those gaps? Sometimes it's before, sometimes it's after, but what do I do to make this experience like as successful as I can, right? I'm spending a lot of money. So, I mean, that's my big recommendation. 3 months is not a long time. If they're doing heavy CS, and I'm talking about like a heavy JavaScript coding bootcamp, you're saying they're spending more time on CSS, which a lot of coding bootcamps don't spend enough time on to prepare people for front-end positions. But this one's spending more time on CSS. That's more time sacrificed for JavaScript. I feel like the JavaScript skills are going to be pretty shaky. And I could see like give it like 1 to 3 months heavy project work, like really dig deep and dive in afterwards, and then you can solidify stuff. Does that sound reasonable?
Yeah, for sure. Sure.
Okay. What do you think of the instructors?
I thought the instructors were actually great. So they all like, first of all, all the instructors came from a background of like most of them were like senior software engineers, so they had a couple years in the industry. So not only did they like really know their stuff, like if you had any industry related questions, like they were able to answer it quickly. And yeah, I think that's the one thing that I really did my research on with BrainStation, was that their instructors were very high quality. Because I've heard like stories of other boot camps maybe taking like fresh computer science graduates, or maybe just like maybe even like recently graduated bootcamp students, which I personally don't feel comfortable paying that much money for. So the fact that they were able to bring in such experienced developers who were also able to communicate their ideas really well was something I was very satisfied about the program.
Okay.
Same here. My answer is very similar to David. They were very well taught and very well understanding, especially the questions we had. And my cohort do a lot of questions. I think like half the time they would tell us no more questions, we're going to teach us stuff, but they were very understanding and very helpful. Many times I had to go after class or middle of class or ask the questions, and just to figure out how this works. I couldn't get this out, figure it out. I feel like the instructors were very well good, and I would definitely recommend them going on.
Okay.
My cohort had two TAs and 3 teachers, and if there was ever a question that one of them couldn't answer, the other one could. So I never really felt like we were lacking in that sense.
Gotcha. Okay. So it sounds like overall the instructors are really good. I'm glad that they have previous experience. I don't expect TAs obviously to have previous industry experience, but it sounds like when you needed help, you could get that help. Okay. Do you feel like the curriculum, given the time span, I guess like, how do I want to phrase this? I guess like, do you feel job ready once you come out of this program?
No.
Not at all. Like, there's still a lot of stuff to bring for. Like I think I went to the library 2 days ago just to pick up a book up on SQL. I'm like, we did not learn this stuff at all. We learned like maybe one lecture and then we moved on to the next stuff. I'm looking at job the requirements and stuff. I'm like, I don't know half the stuff they're asking me to do. So I do get that 3 months was not enough to teach all this stuff, but I definitely don't still feel job ready after 3 months. I'm still like doing a lot of self-study, a lot of spending hours every single day, but do not feel ready.
Okay.
I think I have a different take here, where I personally think if, which is kind of what I did, where I used the bootcamp as a supplement to fill in the gaps for my self-studying knowledge. And that I think in that sense, personally, I found the bootcamp to make me job ready, which is kind of how I was able to get my current full-time position. Because any gaps in knowledge, I would ask my knowledgeable instructors, and then we even had like whiteboarding sessions where I was able to like just go over the interview process, got more comfortable, and I'm going to say like if this bootcamp is used as a supplement to your self-study knowledge, then I would say it gets you job ready.
I think that's really good advice.
Yeah.
How much time realistically, all of you were full-time, so how much time did you actually spend to get through the program without falling behind?
I would say outside of class, probably maybe an extra 30 to 40, I would say, to keep up with the pace of the weekend.
What were the hours of class?
So it was like 9:30 to 5:30, I believe. Something like that.
Okay. And so that's for the weekend. Are you saying 35 to 40 extra hours?
Yeah, or that's kind of how much I put in. I can't speak for other people, but it worked out for me during those 3 months. So that's my take on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about the hours, but definitely I would come home, spend, I would 9 to 5, same time schedule. I'd get home at 7, study until midnight or something, get up. Weekends would be dedicated to, studying for the assignments. So definitely a big chunk of my time after coming home was spent reading the lecture just to keep on track. But not sure about the time, but I'm guessing it's around the same as I did spend I did cancel a lot, sacrifice a lot of stuff. No TVs or nothing, just come home, study, repeat for 3 months. So definitely.
Okay.
My cohort, at least, like, we all hung out after our classes. So it would be like 2 hours afterwards. I'll go to a cafe and like study together. And then on the weekends, some of us would meet up. But usually Sundays, because I did leave things for last minute for projects. So Sundays, I think I put in the most hours. Yeah.
Okay, so essentially 7 days a week.
Somewhat, yeah.
Yeah, I would say so.
I would burn out. How'd you guys do it?
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't recommend this to everyone. For me, I kind of, I don't know, I can't speak for anyone else but myself, but during university, I was kind of a bit of I was a big procrastinator. I wouldn't spend too much time on like assignments. So knowing this bootcamp was coming up, I kind of had to build up my work capacity. So like from the moment I graduated up until the bootcamp, I kind of like started with like 20 minutes a day, into 30, into an hour, into 2, into 4. And then once I was able to develop that routine, I think come bootcamp time, I was able to like handle those hours, if that makes sense. Also knowing that it's temporary as well. And because like, I was like, okay, April, I graduate. After this, I'll take it more chill and then just focus on the job search and focus on my job kind of thing. So I definitely wouldn't recommend doing this from 0 to 100 because you're right, that's a recipe for burnout. Don't do that. But I think if you kind of like, I don't know, like going to the gym, like building muscle, right? It takes time. You gotta like work your way up. You can't lift a couple 100 pounds right away. You gotta build up.
Okay, that's good advice. How'd you two get through it?
Mine was kind of the opposite of David's, where I had the same procrastination habits in college, and then work kind of got me a bit lazy for the past year and a half before boot camp, where I would just finish work and then do a little self-study, come home, and just chill. But when boot camp started, it definitely was a challenge to build myself up to keep on working, keep on studying assignment stuff. I still procrastinate a little bit, but definitely was a challenge. And I feel like when I graduated, I'm like, oh, this big relief on my shoulder where I could just relax, dial down, relax a little bit before starting again. But it was something that was challenging for me to do, just to build the habit of, coming home and studying and then working assignments, where I would leave school, I would just come home, finish my assignments on Sunday. That's something I was used to, where I had to build this habit of, studying beyond what I can normally do.
Okay.
I think it definitely helped working with people in my class, because since we were all struggling together, we were all suffering together. It just made it easier, I think, to do it as a group than to suffer alone. And just having whatever free time you have to decompress and not overstress yourself.
Okay. If you wanted to keep up with the program, eat a healthy diet, keep up with your workouts, and just like keep your mental health good, is that attainable for the average person at BrainStation?
I think it's possible, but I just think it depends on like what you value. Because I know a couple of people in my class that were like going out and still like trying to be social, but they did not sleep like at all. And they probably towards the end they were pretty burnt out. But I also know other people that were like working out all the time. They would go on runs. They kept to their workout routine, but they would work out before they went to class.
Okay.
I think it depends on where you live also. We had some people in my class who live like 5 minutes away. For them, going to the gym morning and stuff was a lot easier. whereas a couple of us, including me, we lived like an hour and a half away. So I would leave the house at like 6:30, and then I would get home by like around 7. So it was a bit hard to do all that stuff, but depends on how far close to campus you are too.
Okay.
For me, I kind of I committed to the 3 months, and I found a Airbnb to stay at near the campus. So I kind of bought myself that time to be able to eat healthier meals and have an hour in there to work out. And I think it was well worth the money in the end to move closer, just so I could, focus on my studies while also maintaining my sanity, I would say.
How do you mind sharing how much you paid for the Airbnb for that 3 months?
Yeah, for sure. I definitely lived in a shack, but it was like $1,000 a month for downtown Toronto, so it wasn't too bad.
Okay. So I think the advice that you guys gave to really prep for this is going to be very helpful for a lot of students. I'm curious how they choose to select students. Do you feel like they have a rigorous assessment to be able to not let students in that aren't prepared just yet, where they say, hey, okay, you guys are shaking your head now?
No.
So do you have any assessment to get in?
Yeah. It was very simple though, I would say. So it was just like put a couple HTML tags in here, do a bit of CSS on it, and then for the JavaScript portion, it was just like write a for loop and write a sum function. And I think that was
some pseudo loop thing. That's why it wasn't real code. It wasn't just some few lines of not even real JavaScript. But yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I know a lot of people that didn't complete it correctly, and they were there.
Huh. Okay. That's just going to cause problems.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can't say it any better than you guys have. If you don't really have, JavaScript is really, it takes a while to get the foundations down. It's different than learning HTML and CSS. It's programming. It's very logic heavy. And if you're not even solving problems with JavaScript, you're not really doing a good job at reinforcing those foundations to begin with. So they're really just testing you on can you do a function or a loop or something like that? Maybe they changed their assessment. Maybe it's different. I think that's an extremely poor assessment. So I'm a big believer in having a rigorous assessment. It's not saying you are not allowed into our program. It's saying you are paying a lot of money. We don't think you're ready to get the most value out of our program just yet. So we're going to go ahead, and then you give free materials or a cheap course to help prepare for that or something like that. But I can't emphasize this enough. Please take their advice seriously and prep for this. Because I can already say 3 months is not enough to teach this full stack, especially if they have an emphasis on CSS. But damn, I would say out of a lot of coding boot camps, the amount of hours that you guys have spent, it's on the higher end compared to a lot of other coding boot camps where you're probably going to come out with a more solid foundation of JavaScript, but sometimes it means they just have a rigorous assessment. They wait until you're at a certain point, or they have 4 months, 5 months, 6 months of a program, and you have time for this to solidify. So you don't feel like you're constantly behind trying to catch up. But yeah, I'm just going to stress it again. Prepare for this. Please do.
Mm-hmm.
So we kind of went over the curriculum. We went over the instructors. What was the career services like?
I can go first because I've been doing that for the past few weeks. I just graduated. And they're kind of helpful in a way. You can ask questions a lot, and they do post jobs in the Slack channel, definitely, which I'm applying. And my instructor, Emma, she's really helpful just to reach out to her, ask any questions or advice they can give. But that's about it. You can ask questions. We have weekly stand-ups, and you can schedule one-on-ones to more helpful tips and get advice on what to do interview preparation. Well, like that's just about it. So there's still like, for my cohort too, a lot of us are spending 6 to 8 hours applying jobs. And I think they mentioned before that they would pass on the resumes and profiles to their career partners, which I'm not sure what happened to that part yet, but we haven't told anything about that. We're just, offering this job posting on Slack channels and just offering one-on-one or group sessions.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. I think that they're definitely trying their best. My person's Annette, and she reaches out all the time. If you don't show up to a stand-up, she'll send you guys an email. She'll do one-on-one meetings with you. If you need help with your resume, you can send it to her, and she'll tailor it to whatever job you're applying to. So I think that she tries very hard, but it's also kind of like what work you put into it. I know a lot of people gave up on applying and are just going to go ahead and get another master's, or they're just scared that they're not really prepared enough. But yeah, it's not like they have a hiring network, from what I know, that's actually benefited anyone in that cohort.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So for me, I didn't really have the chance to use the post-bootcamp career services that much, because I got my job. I started my job in May. But during the bootcamp though, we had couple maybe once every 2 weeks we had an hour or two sessions just about brushing up your interview skills or your resume work. And I found those really insightful. And I definitely applied those concepts to my resume over the course of the bootcamp, and I think I was able to have a very solid resume before I got my full-time job.
What was the best advice you got, David?
I think it was don't BS the interviewer, because they will sniff you out almost immediately. And I definitely think that helped during my interview. So I would say, yeah, that was the best one for sure.
Integrity. I like it. A lot of coding boot camps have sorely lacked that, to be honest, because they're so scared of their placement rates going down. And you're right. Interviewers have been dealing a lot with that, and it does not look good, and they've learned to catch it. Okay. What's your favorite thing about the program?
I'll go first. I guess the community, I really enjoyed that my cohort was as close as we were, because we did lean on each other a lot, and that we got really close to the TAs, and that just in general, we were all pretty close.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with Natalie here. I think the community and the instructors made the program worth the tuition fee alone. Quality of instruction, how everyone wanted to just get through this program together. Yeah, it was more. I think it was more than worth what I paid for because of it.
Same here. My answer is pretty much the same as those too. I feel like the community was really good together, and my cohort got really along really well to the point where we're still meeting up after graduation to work on projects and such. So it definitely helped, with the people, the like-minded people, and people I got along with. It made it really easier to finish those 3 months.
Okay. Community's a big one. What could they improve?
I think for me, the two biggest things were kind of like you brushed up on earlier, the admissions test being harder. And I think making the back-end curriculum a little, maybe just give us more to work with, because we kind of brushed over SQL, Connects, Node all in a week or 2 or something. And so you can imagine the breadth or how much we learned was there's no way a lot of that stuck with us, right? But yeah, for the admissions, I just feel there were a couple people in our cohort that just we all wanted to obviously help the people who were struggling, the people who who had a bit of a background. But I think the knowledge gap, with keeping up with the pace of the course was just too much for certain people. And I think it come like project time or like peer programming time, it's just sometimes like when you work in a big group of people and not everyone's pulling their weight, it becomes really hard to finish tasks, and especially your own when you have to make sure your teammates' tasks are like working as well, right? Like version control was also like another big thing that like if you never like touched a project before, like you wouldn't know how it works, right? And merge conflicts, like, yeah, you can spend like a couple hours fixing that, right? And yeah, there's just too much to learn. And I feel like if the admissions test was like a bit harder, people would come in a little bit more prepared and have more realistic expectations of the bootcamp, my opinion. And yeah, I guess that kind of ties into the back-end curriculum as well, because I just feel like, yeah, the back-end part was just super weak. And they didn't even give us an assignment for it too. So like we didn't really get to solidify any of the concepts we learned.
What you didn't get an assignment. How did you learn the back end?
So then they gave us like a group project, right? But it was like just like a couple, like you could tell like who in the group was just like, who could really understand this stuff and just kind of working through it. Whereas the people who were still struggling with JavaScript were just like, not like understanding the project at all. So, because that wasn't an individual assignment, the back-end knowledge gap compared to the front-end knowledge gap for most people was just enormous. And I feel like that was a bit of an issue.
Okay. What about you two? What could they improve?
Definitely the backend part. I think in my case, we had an individual assignment where we had to use a backend to make a REST API, but not much really covering MySQL or Next stuff. And that was only group project. So definitely I would like emphasize on putting more effort on backend stuff rather than front end stuff. And also it's my own bias because I have some experience with front end before. So that was a bit easier for me to understand. But the backend stuff, when I was like, oh, a week goes by, we've done everything, here's a group project work, and I'm like, oh, I'm still learning on day 2. So that stuff I feel like they should definitely cover. Admissions tests, I think when I did mine, they gave me some material to study for. It was just like a random YouTube videos, which again, they were really helpful, but they were not really part of BrainStation's one curriculum. They were just, oh, here's this YouTuber, watch this video on HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and prepare yourself. I feel like they could definitely provide some slides or some readings to do beforehand, at least a month before the course starts. Just some readings on their own study material rather than some other YouTubers.
Okay.
I think they could have really improved on their grading scale. At least for my cohort, every time we turned something in, we weren't 100% sure what we were being graded on. We had like a list of requirements, but there was a lot of times that there would be 2 people that had the exact same code or like very similar codes and got completely different scores. Like one person passed, one person failed. So I think a little more clarity on that. It wasn't until like the second or third sprint that we already saw what we were missing or had, or there would be times that we would fix it too and it would still be counted as wrong. And then the TAs wouldn't really help us much, or the teachers wouldn't really help us much to like change the grades. Again, I think it's like a big class, so it's hard to keep track of everyone, so that's probably part of the problem. Also, backend, we never had our own project for backend, like in actual use. It was just the in-class code-alongs or the lab for the day, and then we had the group project, which the person who knew the most about backend was going to take over, and then there was like an assistant kind of that would help out with that, and then everybody else kind of did the front-end stuff, which it sucks because then everybody else doesn't get to practice. But I think that if they maybe would have done group projects for maybe the first sprint, which was just pretty much all styling and HTML, I think would have been beneficial because then we would have all learned how to use Git and not mess up the repo all the time. Yeah, that probably would have been best. And then later on, do more individual projects for backend.
Okay. I think that all sounds reasonable. The previous review I did, I think the conclusion I kind of came to was strong front end, weak back end. I feel like it's not very different. Natalie, honestly, if you didn't get the scholarship, I think the program is $16,500. Please correct me if I'm wrong. Would you pay for this program?
Probably not, from just reviews that I've heard from other people. And I know a couple of people that went to the other coding school that I was going to go to, and their review is completely different from mine. I mean, I think granted, any boot camp, you're going to feel overwhelmed and it's going to feel like you're jamming a lot of knowledge in there out of nowhere. But I do think that I would have had a little more of a well-rounded experience for knowledge-based, at least the Fulcrum.
What would they need to improve to make that price worth it to you?
I think the back-end development a lot, the JavaScript entirely, because we didn't even get into recursions when we were doing our JavaScript stuff. And I kind of was like, I was getting pretty okay at recursions at the time. And I felt that at the end of the boot camp, because I wasn't using JavaScript like really much at all, when I went back to do the practice problems that I had already completed, I couldn't, because I just lost over the 3 months.
And it was $16,500, right?
I also got like a $3,000 scholarship, so I was able to bring it down a bit.
Yeah, so, they do offer. Yeah, I got a diverse scholarship too, so they did bring it down to like 13,500 something.
I paid around the same price as they did.
Would both of you be willing to pay $16,500 for this?
Definitely not. It's a bit too much.
Yeah, I think when my university tuition was $5,000 a semester, and this was maybe 3 semesters of school, I would say no as well. But it's kind of hard to say because I was really satisfied with my experience, but at the same time, it's yes and no, which is like hard to say, right?
It can be a hard question to answer, especially you got a job afterwards, right?
Yeah.
But the big recommendation is heavy supplementation beforehand.
Yeah.
Okay. So I kind of want to sum up my experience of what I've heard, and correct me at the end if I'm wrong, or if you want to add anything, and I'll give you guys a chance to basically, add anything we didn't touch on. So with BrainStation, it sounds like they haven't, I don't even remember the last review. It was so long ago, but I have it in my thumbnail right now. Strong front end, weak back end. It sounds like they haven't really improved the back end much. It feels like the assessment is poor. A lot of people are coming in unprepared. A lot of people are playing catch up, and they're just truly struggling. And sometimes they wouldn't be able to follow through with a lot of the tasks of the project work. And, some people are having to pick up the slack. I'd argue if you're someone that's like really hustling, that's going to be advantageous to you to basically supplement what other people are doing. Like, that's fantastic. You're going to be a very highly desired developer, where you're going to experience this on professional teams too. Like, some people don't do their tasks, and other people will pick up the slack. So I'd argue that is an advantage, while very frustrating. And I've had my own experiences with that in my coding bootcamp. It sounds like front end, I love that they're touching more on CSS. I think a lot of front end developers severely lack that. And they're leaning on like something like Bootstrap or Tailwind. And then they get into the job search and they realize like really fundamental CSS skills are going to make them stand out, be able to learn any CSS framework anyways. So when you just lean on one single framework, there are some jobs that will hire for it. But when the CSS fundamentals are lacking, I've talked to different hiring managers and they're just like, with coding boot camps, they're just not teaching CSS. So I actually do love that they're spending so much time on CSS, but the program isn't long enough. They need to extend the program. That's my opinion. Extend it to 4 months. And I think that's might be worth $16,500. If you get a big scholarship or even like a big portion, thousands, around 3,000 is a lot of money taken off of it. Maybe you could consider a program like this if you do a lot of prep initially, or you're prepared to spend heavy 3 months afterwards, like really diving deep into project work to reinforce everything. I guess it's, to be honest, I'm kind of tired of coding boot camps calling themselves software engineering boot camps. Most boot camps don't even prepare you for backend at all. And I mean, like, technically, I do think you are a software engineer learning JavaScript and being able to be a front end developer, right? I don't really care about those labels, but the problem is if you advertise yourself as like a full stack program or anything like that, if your backend sucks, that's just an inaccurate advertisement. And a lot of coding bootcamps fail at this terribly. They produce terrible backend engineers, and like they'll just lean on like basic hosting like Heroku. They won't even have like a cloud setup. The programming is just terrible. Like the architecture on the back end is just horrible. Like a lot of junior developers will dive into conventions for convention's sake, but they have no idea why it's organized a certain way. They have no idea why these conventions exist. They have no idea why React exists. Like they don't even have the idea of like building some fundamental app without React, but they don't really understand the advantages of this abstraction. They're just like, I need to learn React, right? And so I'm going to do as best as I can to learn React, and they think they're going to be very marketable, but there are a lot of bugs that can happen with React. And when you don't really understand JavaScript well and what's happening under the hood, that can be really, it takes a huge ramp up time to get people's foundations enough to be able to pick up anything they need to in a professional setting. So I feel like with this, and I do want to touch on this, instructors, it sounds like really good experience with that. And that's awesome. I think instructors can make or break an experience. And it quite frankly sounds like instructors are just kind of handed a little bit of a crappy experience and they're making the best of it and creating a really good experience for students, which is awesome. Like hiring good instructors that care to do that actually care, that have that previous experience. That's fantastic, right? I would argue like if you have bad instructors with this program, that is just a horrible idea to sign up for this. So at least they are making it a good experience. They're providing that community. AJ, you mentioned like you had a good cohort where you're building projects afterwards. So like it sounds like they really focused on that community building and pairing. That's fantastic. And then career services, it sounds like they're willing to help you out. It sounds like the staff are willing and caring to help you out when you need help, and they are there for you. I just think the design and the structure of the program is extremely lacking, and it's causing a lot of you can fix a lot of these problems by changing the structure. I don't know the business side of things. I don't know what they're paying instructors. I don't know these details, but I can say across many coding bootcamps, my recommendation, extend it to 4 months, keep that price the same. If that means you can't offer as many scholarships, I don't know. Like, I really don't know the business side of it. And I don't know where they're lacking so much money, where they're trying to cram so much in so little time. I just don't know. Maybe it's more contracts with government to be able to, I don't know what contracts they have to get grants in. So anyways, I'm ranting with that, but I feel like it just needs to be extended a little bit. And because it's not, try to get that discount, huge supplementation on the front end, beforehand, back end. And I think this program might be something to consider. It sounds like you're going to have to do a lot of supplementation on the back end though. So if you're looking for a heavy back end, produce like strong back end engineers, you're like, I love Node, right? Maybe this program isn't for you. Maybe there are better programs that will better prepare you unless you're willing to supplement. I would say that's kind of the impressions I got. Do you feel like I'm wrong with anything? Would you add, remove anything from what I said? Okay.
I think you hit the nail on the head. Yeah. Oh,
okay.
Perfect.
Cool. Awesome. Is there anything else you feel like I didn't touch on that you think is important for prospect students to know? You don't have to answer this, but if you were kind of just waiting.
I think for people who are like on the fence about this, maybe like really think about what you want to accomplish, I guess, in the bootcamp, and set realistic expectations. Because like 3 months to go from 0 to 100, despite what the YouTube videos might say, it's not realistic. You need to spend more time, like figuring out what like everything does, how stuff works under the hood. Like some people don't even know what like a client and server are, right? Like coming into this, like at the end of this program, right? Which is kind of like ridiculous in my opinion. So yeah, just set expectations to be realistic. I would say
that's good advice.
Yeah.
Anyone watching on YouTube, can you start linking just in this? Don't link it everywhere. Can you just link if you see a YouTube video that says you can become a developer in 3 months, or like, you can get your first job, like 100K, like, can you link it in the comments? Like, honestly, I just want to start roasting some of these videos. Like, this is ridiculous. And this is like, everyone says they've seen a video like this. And I'm like, how does this type of video still exist? Like, haven't enough software engineers shut this down yet? But they just keep popping up. And then they're on TikTok or Instagram Reels. And it's like, I just link it. It'll go to my held for review. I will approve it. Just link it. That's kind of my call to action. But I think we covered everything. I think that's it. I really appreciate you guys coming on. So before we head out, we'll go ahead and start with you, David. But if people want to reach out with you and anything else you'd like to share, what would you like to share with us?
Yeah, if you guys have any questions about my experience or like maybe you want some advice, you feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I kind of forgot my LinkedIn handle, but I can maybe we can put that. Yeah, we'll link it in the description below, and then yeah.
Sounds good. How about you, AJ?
Yeah. So if anyone wants to reach out, you can contact me on LinkedIn. My LinkedIn is Singh SINGH. I also have a website, ajsingh.ch portfolio. Contact me at ajsingh.ca as my email. For any questions, advice, or any projects you want to build, definitely reach out.
Cool.
You guys can reach out to me on LinkedIn also. Nathalie, Nathalie, Barreto, Barreto. And I'm more than happy to talk to anyone and offer any advice. And also the program is kind of what you make of it. Like, there's people that did really well. There's people that still don't know anything. So the ball's really in your court. But I think that's all of software engineering. So.
Okay, cool. We'll wrap it up with that. I appreciate that. All right, that's it. Let me know what you thought in the comments. If you are a BrainStation graduate or if you've considered the program or you're considering it, definitely let me know what you thought of this episode. Is there anything you'd add, anything you'd remove? Seriously, I want to know. And yeah, we'll go ahead and wrap it up there. David, AJ, Nathalie, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, Bob.